So our new unit is transformations. And transformations can be, if you think about the movie, the transformation movie, it's changing one thing into something different. We are going to look at specific types. So if you're watching this video, then you need to pause and do page 1. Don't look at any of the answers on page 2. But if you haven't done it, then do that on your own first. So pause and then come back. All right, we are now back. I feel like I'm like a newscaster because I'm recording this for our sophomores that are out. So anyway, let's take a look. What did you guys decide on number 1? What do you think? Good. Translation. So remember, a translation, what is another word for translation? Like real world terms. Would be a slide. So it says, describe what happens to get from the shaded figure to the non-shaded. So we would take this shaded figure and we would slide it. And that would be our translation. What about number 2? What do you guys think? A rotation. Because basically we take that shaded figure and we turn it. So a rotation is like a turn. Number 3, what do you think about that one? Dilation. You hear about dilation of your eyes. I hate when I go to the optometrist and they dilate my eyes and they get huge as saucers and they stay that way. Most of the time unequally for like hours. Sometimes my kids, they stay for days. They stay big like that. So everything is bright. You're dilating your eyes. You're changing the size. So this would be a size change. What about number 4? What do we think about 4? That is a reflection. The line of reflection would be right between those. All right, now let's go down and take a look at those bottom ones at the bottom. What do you say about number 1? Translation? What about number 2? Dilation. 3? Rotation. And 4? Reflection. All right, let's flip to page 2. And on page 2, we've got some vocab words. This is a nice summary of vocab for you. These are all words that you're responsible for. A transformation is kind of like the overall. A rotation is a transformation. A dilation is a transformation. A reflection is a transformation. So those are all examples of transformations. Pre-image is the image before, the picture before, and the image is the picture after. Those are huge. We'll talk about pre-image and image a lot. Translation, you might write slide beside that. It's where every point on a figure moves in a straight line and all points move the same distance. This basically is it's 2 reflections over parallel lines. And we'll do that by hand in a little bit. A rotation is when you take every point and it moves around a given point, known as the center of rotation. So there's another vocab word. All points move the same angle measure. And this would be a turn. A reflection, every point is flipped over a line of reflection. So a line of reflection would be another one you need to know. Dilation is a transformation that preserves the shape. What does that mean? Preserves the shape. the shape is the same, however, the size can change. A glide reflection, they use the word, basically it's composition. You'll see that word written as composition as well. And it is a translation and a reflection. So basically we have two different types of transformations. Two different ways that you can change things. You could change it, and what we call it is isometry, and that is basically a transformation where you stay the same size. We would talk about this as congruent figures. A dilation changes size. So what would we talk about there? They're not congruent, but the shape is the same, so that would be similar figures. Now, these two things I want you to get in. These are two definitions here. Order of symmetry. Maybe put the word rotational symmetry. Order of rotational symmetry and magnitude. Now I'll read those. I'll underline them to make it a little easier to see. The order of symmetry is the number of times a figure maps onto itself from 0 as it rotates from 0 to 360. You're going to see an example of that today, and I think that'll make it easier. So the order of rotational symmetry is the number of times that I can turn a figure and it looks exactly the same. I can turn it again, it looks exactly the same, like I never turned it. Turn it again, it looks exactly the same. Looks like I never turned it. So if I were to have this round object, how many times could I turn it and it looks exactly the same? Infinitely many. So a circle would have infinitely many times I could turn it. Now, what about let's see if I've got, here we go. What about the star? How many times could I turn it and it looks exactly the same? It could go 5 times, because the points is if I take this point and I move it to the other edge, as long as it's exact, all the points are the exact same. Does that make sense? All right, magnitude. The magnitude is the smallest angle through which a figure can be rotated so it maps onto itself. So magnitude is talking about an angle measure. Order is talking about a number. So you might write those beside it. Those are going to be vocab words that you see. Magnitude talks about an angle measure. It's the smallest angle through which a figure can be rotated so it maps onto itself. Smallest angle through which a figure can be rotated so it maps onto itself. Now, we talk about orientation. We have the same orientation, we have the opposite. So the same orientation is if I look at my letters, this is my original, A, B, C, D. This is my, notice the little tick marks? This means I'm talking about the image. The image has these little tick marks beside it. This is the pre-image. When I am finished, once I have done whatever mapping I'm going to, the orientation is the same. A prime, B prime, C prime, D prime as I go around. Now, opposite orientation would be something like a reflection. A reflection, when I reflect this figure over the line, this is my x prime. Then I've got my y prime and my z prime. Notice I go x, z, y, and this one I go x, y, z. The orientation, how we talk about them, going clockwise, changes. Opposite orientation, same orientation. So those are some vocab words.